Hey guys, you'll have to excuse my nose and if I cough a little bit because I'm at home sick for once. Um, I've had some people ask me to talk about my early martial arts experiences and stuff like that. And other than getting trained by dad from the age of like 4, 5 years old, I think I started judo when I was like probably 5 or 6 or something. And um, I remember mum taking me down. Actually, first of all, we had to look in the paper to find a second-hand uniform. We weren't terribly well off, so I had to go get a second-hand uniform, and I was going to be doing judo. So we went to this guy's house to pick up the judo gi, and of course, being in a town of like 30,000 people, the guy that we went to get it off was the head coach of the judo school. And the little gi that I got was called, I think it was called Blossom. It had a little cherry blossom on it. Apparently, it was from the Kodokan in Japan. Anyway, so I hope Mum still has this tiny little gi for me. One day I want to put it up in my gym. Anyway, so we went to Noel Scudder's house. He was the coach. Bought this gi, and then I remember starting judo, and like I was really small. I was really skinny, and I wasn't very confident or anything like that. And like everybody beat me up. But I remember in particular there were these two girls. I don't know if they were twins. They were definitely sisters. And they would beat the hell out of me, and it would really upset me that I was like losing to girls and stuff, especially when I went home and Dad would say, "So how was training?" And I'm like, I'd be crying because I knew that Dad was going to kick the hell out of me and stuff like this for losing. Um, and but Dad's solution was kind of unique, other than yelling at me and throwing me around and trying to teach me judo his way. Um, was he? I remember he got a piece of paper out after a couple of months, and then he drew a map of the room, and he wanted me to identify like chairs and tables, and asked if there were padded walls and stuff that I could start throwing kids into to try and gain some sort of an advantage. And it was a terrible idea, of course, but like that's the sort of dad that I had, right? It was like win at all costs. And so I would be going to judo and I was constantly in trouble. Eventually, the school asked me to leave, right? Because I mean, I was out of control. I was going home. I mean, it was a horrible childhood, and Mum never ever came into the academy. She would sit outside in the car, or she would drive home and then come back and get me later. Like nobody ever joined me in the academy. It was like Mum would park outside. I would walk in. Whatever would happen to me would happen, and then I'd come back out and get back in the car and go home again. And I think it's really important that parents like support their kid and go in and watch them train. Maybe not all the time, but like a lot of the time. I think that's really super important. I think it's even more important that the parents train. Like if you're asking your kid to do something, well, go and get involved yourself. Like don't just ask your kids to do difficult things. So eventually, as much as I didn't really enjoy um, judo when I was young, mostly because I was so much smaller than everybody else and just got beat up a lot. And I was probably there for 3 years before they asked me to leave. And then I went to karate, and similar thing. I was out of control as a kid, and mostly led by like a terrible father figure. And then I'd go to karate, and I'd want to punch everybody and kick them as hard as I could, and then I'd have it explained to me, that I couldn't do that. That I had to pull my punches short. And of course, when I went home and told my dad about this, like he was furious, and he's like, "No, that's rubbish. Just hit them as hard as you could." So I talk a lot about how parents are your superheroes, especially like dads for their sons. It's very important that you lead by example because, like, of course, my dad was my superhero, even though he was an idiot. But to me, I didn't know that at the time, you know, and so I just wanted to please my dad and make him happy so that maybe I could get loved. And so I would do whatever he said. And then I would go to the club and hit kids. And I remember in my first karate grading, like they were hitting me with the shinai and stuff because I wouldn't listen to them. And I had absolutely no respect for authority at all. And I mean, which is not surprising, right? Because the authority figures that I trusted were like unreliable and aggressive and inconsistent and drunk and violent and things like that. So, of course, like I didn't have any respect for my parents. I was scared of them, but I didn't have any respect for them. They weren't acting in a respectful way. So, of course, that translated to the way that I treated all adults and the way that I felt about all adults and authority figures. So then after my first karate grading, I was loving karate. I thought it was awesome, you know. But then Taekwondo started, and so by that time I was like 13 or 14 when Taekwondo started. And again, Mum saw an advertisement in the paper. She knew that I was getting frustrated with doing karate, and I really was obsessed with kicking, so I wanted to go learn Taekwondo. I had all these Taekwondo magazines at home and stuff, and then Mum saw this advertisement in the paper, and we went down. It was a freezing cold night. We had this tiny little mini called a Riley Alpha, tiny little car, pouring with rain. It was freezing cold, and we go down there, and lo and behold, I later find out it's the president of the World Taekwondo Federation himself, Master Lee and Jun Han Lee, his brother, and they were my Taekwondo coaches. So I was always really fortunate to have like super high level coaches. As a kid, I was just almost uncoachable though. I was out of control, and it's frustrating when I look back, and especially if I encounter children like that myself in my own academy, because I've got like a decent idea as to kind of what's going on with them, and it's frustrating sometimes because I mean, if I have a kid like that that's just not improving, I have to ask them to leave because it's not conducive to running a class, and it hurts a lot because like it reminds me of me, and I feel a lot of sadness for that for the kids like that because a lot of the time it's just not their fault. That they're just acting out in a way that, I don't know, I guess is proportionate to what's going on in their lives and stuff like that. It's very difficult to see. And so I got really seriously into Taekwondo, and that guy almost, again, my martial arts coaches were really my father figures. And I realized the gravity of and the importance of myself, and I speak to my coaches about how important it is for us to be these leaders, to be these mentors for the children. Many children come to us from broken homes, separated parents. Many times it's not always, but often it's the mum bringing us the kids, and we need to kind of fulfill that role and to be that consistent source of like a male figure and stuff in their lives, and to provide like a consistent performance for them, and to be reliable and to be caring, and also to curb their behavior if it's inappropriate and stuff like that, so we take it very seriously. So anyway, so like with my Taekwondo coach, I would go around and hang out at his house after training. His house was on the way to my home after training, so almost every night after training I'd be lingering and hanging around with him. And he made the mistake of inviting me in for dinner one day because like that was it, because like I didn't want to go home. I just want to stay there, and we'd sit there and watch Taekwondo. He had like a Beta, it was like a VHS thing but an alternative, and we'd sit there and watch these black and white Taekwondo demonstrations from the Korean national team. And he had all this stuff because I mean he trained the Korean military, so he had hundreds of tapes, and we'd just sit up all night watching those. And they'd feed me, and then they'd like kind of almost force me out the door, and then I'd have to go home. I just didn't want to go home ever. And So I was very grateful. He brought me out of my shell. I was incredibly shy, and had like no self confidence. And um, without him, I probably wouldn't be doing what I do now, because as a result of him building up my self confidence and pushing me into positions of leadership that I really wasn't comfortable with. He wanted me doing demonstrations and things like that at schools with him, because I was good at what I did, but I was way too shy to do any sort of public demonstration. So he built my confidence up, got me out in the front of class, and got me teaching kids and adults. So I started teaching adults when I was probably, I'm guessing, like 13 or something like that, maybe. Yeah, so it was a crazy childhood, and like it's so important for kids to do martial arts. Not all kids, maybe, but like a lot. I think that it's an incredible skill to have, and I just see enormous changes in so many children. Occasionally, as I said, we get the occasional kid that we have to ask to leave because they just don't fit in, and their behavior won't change and stuff like that. So that's really sad, because, I want every kid to train. I want every adult to be able to train. But sometimes it's just not possible. Um, but for every kid like that we have to let go, there's dozens and dozens that I see incredible changes in, and especially the younger kids, kids who are starting at like 4 years of age and super shy and wear their fringe really long, so the girls and stuff like this, and they don't want to make eye contact. And, 6 or 8 months later, they're walking up to you and, you know, saying hi and, welcoming you first, and then, without any sort of prompting, coming up and giving you a hug goodbye and stuff like that. Like, it really touches you deeply, and I feel like we're doing incredible work. So um, if you have the desire to teach and help people, and you're involved in the martial arts, then coaching is incredibly valuable, and it makes you feel amazing, and it creates amazing humans. You do amazing work. It's not easy. It's difficult. Days like today where I'm sick and I can't be at the gym, I'm lucky that I have some great assistant coaches who can step up and carry the flame for me in my absence. And I'm very grateful to them. But if you're a parent, then I suggest that you jump on the mat, start training. And if you have kids, we'll put them on the mat, and everybody train together. I love seeing families training together. It's an absolute incredible sight. And yeah, it's incredible. Anyway, I'm going to start coughing again, so I better go. Cheers, guys. Bye.